Well, for those of you who follow Death by Bunjie, you're aware that I have had issues this year with my food plots and with my tractors and all that good stuff. I've had a problem with a chain in particular on this TerraForce YJC052 Rototiller. I had some issues with that, but the chain has broken 3 times. Now, before that chain breaks, chain's contained right there in that little compartment there on the end. That's the chain. Had that off there several times. Before that breaks, or before any part breaks, really even a tine, by hitting rocks or hitting roots, anything like that, that slip clutch right there should slip. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to slip that clutch. I have now put the chain back on it. So when I start this up and turn it on, and those tines start turning, it should do a little bit of pressure on the slip clutch. And what I've done, I'm going to show you how to slip one of these clutches. I'm no expert. I am not a mechanic. My father was. I certainly did not get any of his genius when it comes to that stuff. That is for sure. But here's your slip clutch, right? Here's the PTO coming out. What it does, it goes in here, and you've got these really strong springs with these bolts coming through here, and they go through. The slip clutch is this little contraption here, and what I've done is marked it. If you look, if I can get the focus on it there. See those white marks, how they kind of line up? I've drawn on that with a chalk marker, the little chalk thing. I can show you what I got here. This little guy. I use all my dad's old tools. I love this stuff. I miss my dad, but I think he would be happy that I'm using this stuff, even though I'm limited in ability. I think he'd be happy I'm using his old tools and stuff. So all the old snap-on wrenches and stuff he had from his old garage. He had a garage all through the 60s and 70s. And then 80s and 90s. Went to work for a company working on their trucks. He was a diesel mechanic. But anyway, I think he'd be proud of me for doing this stuff, at least trying to do it. What we're going to do is slip that clutch. What you do, basically, I just back off these, right? Back them all off. Keep them so that they're the same length. You want to keep even pressure on that thing. You don't want it warped. You don't want it, a big gap here and then a real small gap here. That wouldn't be good. You want to evenly do it. So I backed it off the same distance on every one so that the same amount of threads are showing at the end of the nut, and so that the length of this overall appears to be the same. This gap is all the same. And then we'll tighten it back up to its previous size when we're done. So what I've done is I marked that, and then what I'm going to do is start up the tractor, and I'm going to run that rototiller 5 times. Count them, 5. And then when I come back and look at it, hopefully, if I've got these backed off enough, right, and it's loose enough, then this will turn and these marks may not all line up. Instead, they'll slip as it's going around and those marks will get out of whack. The reason you do this, why do you do this? Well, you want to do it once a year. And up there, if you look, there's my new brush hog. That has the same... I'll go up there and look at it. That has the same sort of a slip clutch, the same contraption, much bigger one. But if you look in there, take that hood off, there's a slip clutch there as well. And what happens is, you get a real rainy spring in summer, and if this equipment just sits here, the problem you have is it rusts. And it'll sort of rust and seize together in one piece, and then it won't slip. So by loosening it up, letting it slip, the friction will sand it right down, shine it up good, and then hopefully you end up with a good looking product in the end, so that when you tighten it back up, it'll slip next time. So that's the thing. You don't want it to always slip. You just want it to slip before something else breaks, right? Last thing you want, I don't care if it breaks the rototiller, I can fix that, but I don't want it busting that off on the PTO, off on the tractor or something. And incidentally, there's a hood that goes on here to protect it from the weather, but I've got that off so I can work on it. And if I get it to work, I'll put that back on. So there you go. I'm going to slip it now and see what happens. We're just going to start her up, engage it 5 or 6 times, turn it off, engage it again 5 or 6 times in a row, and we'll see what happens. One more. See what that does for her. Come back and look at her. See her marks. And you can look here, and all my marks are still lined up. That tells me that didn't slip one bit. So what I've got to do, loosen these up even more, then we'll run her again and see what happens. Okay, I went and loosened it up again, and boy, you can really tell when you loosen these up, you can feel it when it just kind of, that spring tension is given off a lot. As that tension on those springs are less compressed, you can really feel it when you're moving that wrench around. So I think it'll slip this time. Incidentally, I've got it up in the air because I certainly don't want to till up the driveway here. So I've got it up in the air on those skinny little blocks. The reason those blocks are on edge is so that the tines don't hit the blocks. Got to be careful about this stuff. So could raise it up in the air, but when I'm working on it, I like to have it supported by something other than just the PTO. Never crawl under this stuff, man, and watch your feet. Good Lord. You really give yourself fits if you're not careful. Start her up. Go over here and turn her on. May not slip until such time as I've had it in the dirt. I don't know. Go back here and look. And there's my marks over here. Oh, she slipped this time. Look at that. This is how you can tell it slipped. Draw lots of marks on it, right? Look right there. There's my mark. There's my mark. Those are not lined up. This bad boy has slipped. So, it's probably, wouldn't hurt to slip it a little bit more. And then we'll put her back together, ratchet it back down to its previous dimension. How far is that? Well, just measure this before you do it and move it back to that dimension before you do it. Just, measure it and put it back where it was. Or in my case, tighten it up until it doesn't slip, and then, just tighten it up a little bit. Because I don't want to rust that chain. I'm tired of replacing the chain on this thing. But nevertheless, that's how you do it. You put the marks on there, and I just mark everything with that chalk pen, and come back and look at it later. And my interior mark is right there, by the way. That and that line up, of course. But the outer plates, that mark is clear over here. So it slipped. Should be shined up good. I'll probably run it 4 or 5 more times just to shine it up, make sure it's good and shined up. Then we'll tighten those down a little bit. Frankly, I think it was a little too tight from the factory. I don't know if you can see me here. I don't usually do them this way, but I think it was a little bit too tight from the factory. That's my honest opinion. It was, I shouldn't have broken that chain once, let alone 3 times. That thing should be slipping long before that chain. Chain was probably defective. When I had the chain off, and I wish I shot a video of this, the old chain, I don't have that chain anymore. They warrantied out the old chain, gave me a new chain. But when you run that chain over your finger, there was one link every time that was catching a little bit. And that one didn't break, but I think it was causing the other ones to break. It was causing the problem. Sure wasn't helping. But the new chain, hopefully, all back together, gasket in place, got the 80-90 in there, or whatever it was, the lube oil that goes with it. Make sure you get the right stuff. Put that in there, got it all back together. Looks like it's holding it, so everything's going good. We're going to go out there and rototill and see how it works. But this, I finally got the rototiller going and did a fine job. That chain and the slipping of the clutch, all that stuff, that little project was a good idea. It worked well. And I got a nice little seed bed here for what hopefully would be a whole bunch of turnips, purple top turnips. I bought a bag of those from my local Agway, and hopefully if I get the rocks off here today, I can get this seeded and rolled. Yahoo!